One is magnetic particle testing, and one more is fatigue testing machine. But magnetic particle testing, it is a very simple experiment. But according to your syllabus, you have to conduct the experiment in the lab in the final examination. There are some set of experiment. You have to do it in the regular classes, even for the test. That will be included for the internal marks. But in the examination, you are not required to do. Those experiments are referred as demonstration experiment. And fatigue testing machine comes under demonstration experiment. But as per your internal is considered, lab record writing is considered, it will be included. Even test also it will be included. Viva also it will be included. Even in the examination also they may ask lot of Viva on fatigue testing machine. And it is also required for the material science subject. And at the same time, it is also required for many of your higher semester subject. Don't think that it is only lab. That's why I'm spending more time on fatigue testing machine. Then magnetic particle testing principles are very not so complex, very simple. Once you know understanding the concept of electromagnetic forces, electromagnetic fluxes, and what are magnetic material, all those things we studied in physics, in PUC, even high school level also. If you know those fundamentals, that is sufficient. I'll start with the presentation. So you heard about static load and dynamic load. You heard about static and dynamic loads? Yes or no? Okay, the PPT is visible. PPT.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
There are two types of loads are there. In broadly, loads can be classified. It's one more way of classifying the loads. So one type of load is referred as static loading. That means magnitude of the loading will not change with respect to time. If you write the equation in terms of your mathematics, then dF by dt is equal to 0. That means dF is rate of change of load with respect to time is equal to 0, or dF by or F is constant. The load remains constant. So one example is, imagine vehicle is at rest. Imagine you have a BMTC bus. It is at rest. Then the wheels will be subject to loading, because that is comes under static loading. The load acting on the wheel, the remains same. There is no change when bus is stopped, engine is stopped, and not only the bus is stopped, engine is stopped. Then it is subject to static loading. Even if you consider the axle also, it is subject to static loading. If you consider chassis also, it is subject to static loading. The loading remains same on each and every component. That is static loading. But if you are moving the vehicle at a certain speed, so then the loading, even number of passengers may remain same, or self weight of the vehicle may be remain same, because of there is a dynamic effect, or there may be some inertial effect. Even engine is running, because of that there are some additional loading. Those loadings simply changes with respect to time. So such type of loadings are referred as the dynamic loading. One is static loading, like a load of you imagine buildings. If you consider number of people in the building, weight of the people, is very less compared to self weight of the building. We can say that buildings columns or your house columns or windows or even walls are subject to static loading, not dynamic loading. Only during earthquake or tsunamis, etc. In such cases, because of if it's a very tall building and if because of high speed of the wind, especially Burj towers or very tall building, then other than static loading, the dynamic loading also acting on the building. But most of the few floor buildings, like first only to 1 or 2 floors or few floor building, the majority of the loading is mainly because of static, not because of the dynamic loading. Most of the components are failed because of dynamic loading, not static loading. So that means, in a simple example, if you stand at one place, you will not get tired, you will not get fatigue. But if you run for a few hours, you are strained, you are fatigued. The fatigue is it is a one more type of strain, or it may be one more type of the loading. Strictly speaking, it is a loading. Finally, component may fail because of fatigue loading. Or in simple way, what you conclude is there are two types of load. One is static loading and one more is dynamic loading. The dynamic loading, the loading is magnitude of the loading will be changes with as time changes. The best example you can understand because you studied about internal combustion engine or IC engine. So if you consider piston head, the piston head is subject to maximum pressure during power stroke. But remaining stroke, the pressure on the piston head or crankshaft, even because piston is connected to the connecting rod, the connecting rod is maybe subject to different loading. Suction stroke, the loading may be different. Compression load, the forces acting on the crankshaft is different, and remaining other strokes, the load acting on the crankshaft may be different. So because loading changes continuously, if change of loading is having some cyclic manner or some particular manner, like it follows sinusoidal curve at one point, so it is becomes zero. At one point, when the theta is equal to 90, it is maximum. When theta is equal to 180, it becomes zero. When theta is equal to 270, if sinusoidal curve, you are familiar with the curve, you studied in mathematics, physics, etc. There, so if you follows the loading follows certain pattern. Loading, any doubt? No, if loading is follows at a certain some particular pattern, or it follows cyclic pattern. Cyclic loading is the best example. Cyclic curve is your sinusoidal curve. If you follow sinusoidal curve, the y-axis represent force, x-axis represent time. As time changes, as per your sinusoidal curve, the force also changes. Sometimes it may be zero, sometimes it will be maximum, it may be higher, positive side, another side. After some time, it may be negative side. Negative means with respect to your material science or mechanics of material, it is negative loading or compression loading. So that is, we have the dynamic loading. Dynamic loading also, there is a repeated loading or cyclic loading. Such type of loadings are referred as fatigue loading. If you run at a constant speed for 1 hour or 2 hours, the hip joints will be fatigued or it will be more strained. Again, it is a cyclic loading because when you're running, so you are at one particular point of time, one leg is more strained because more majority when if you stands on one leg, if you pull your leg from the ground, then you are standing on only one leg. Then you are putting the leg on the front. Then you are standing on the one more right leg. That means the loading is changes. It comes to zero. When you lift, the loading on the leg will be zero. So when you put the foot on the ground, then the total load is taken care by the one single foot because other foot you are this complete leg you are lifting. So that is the one example for the cyclic loading. If you run for 5 or 2 minutes, it is not comes under. It may be cyclic loading, but it is not considered as a fatigue loading. If you run for 3 hours or 4 hours, then we can say that our, especially for the hip joint or some joints of our legs or body may be subject to fatigue loading over a long period of time, not for a short period of time. We use the term fatigue loading only when the loading is continuous, the magnitude will changes over a long period of time, then only it is referred as fatigue loading. Now this is the straight away go for a machine. This is a fatigue testing machine. We have the specimen. The before understanding this, I'll give one simple example of how exactly fatigue loading takes place. Imagine you are familiar, already you are using the scale, let it be 1 foot scale. If you hold the scale from both ends and one more person pressing the scale at the midpoint, the scale will bend. Imagine you are using plastic scale. The scale will bend. And same person, what will raise, it will imagine top surface is of the T surface, B bottom surface is of the B surface. And that will be surface A and surface B. So initially surface is at the top. So he is pushing the scale in the downward direction, or you can say that as per your mechanics of material concept, it is considered a beam, because the beam is supported at the two ends, the scale is supported or held by two ends, the load is applied at the center. So surface A is at the top and surface B is at the bottom. So when it is pressed, the top surface of the beam, because already you have seen the bending test. The bending test, the specimen is supported between two, is supported by two support, and you are applying load from the top. The top surface of the bending specimen is subject to compression. Bottom surface of the bending specimens are subject to tensile loading. You can imagine, already you have finished bending test. I am not showing once again. Still, if you want, I will show. Otherwise, it is not required. Already you have spent. So already you have seen a specimen. You are applying the load from the top. It's same as your scale. You are holding the scale on both the end, and you are applying the load at the midpoint. The top surface of the scale is subject to compression loading, and bottom is subject to tensile loading because it bends like this. Then after some time, you can reverse the scale. Your surface A is now at present. Initially, it is at the top. After rotating, I am putting upside down. The same surface A comes to bottom. It will become bottom face. Earlier it was top face. Now it is bottom face. Now still you are applying the load from the top. Now surface A is subjected. Earlier it was subjecting to compression load. Now it is subject to tensile load. So when surface A is in the top, it was subject to compression load. Now we have reversed the scale, or we have rotated through 180 degree. After rotation, surface A is at the bottom. Bottom surface, when load is applied at the center, bottom surface is subject to compression loading. Understood? No, earlier at time T is equal to, let it be T1. The surface A is subject to, in simple way, if you want to understand fatigue loading, because you have to understand what is fatigue, then only remaining things is only arrangement. So surface A at T is equal to, let it be T1. At one particular time, it was at the top. When it was in the top, the surface A is subject to compression loading. Once you rotate the scale, now surface same surface A is at the bottom. Now it is subject to tensile loading. If you rotate it like this, if you rotate 100 times per minute, you understood now, you have the scale. Imagine it is a scale. Now I am initially I have given example, scale is held by person. Now I am rotating the scale, it is connected to some machine. So around 100 RPM. So when it is rotated 100 times per minute, the surface A is subject to 100 times compression load, and same surface A is subject to 100 times tensile load, because 100 rotation means the surface A goes to the top around 100 times per minute, and same surface comes to bottom, it will become bottom surface, so around 100 times. Net totally 100 times the surface A is subject to alternate tensile load as well as compression load. It is acting continuously. So it may be act for over a period of time. It may be for 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. Then such type of loadings are referred as the cyclic loading. Cyclic means if you are sinusoidal curve, like a sinusoidal curve, at one particular point it is highest, let it be 100 megapascal. I think you understand what is stress. The stress is normally expressed in terms of megapascal. When surface A is at the bottom, it is in the tensile load is acting on the bottom surface, that is minus 100 megapascal, because we are saying 100 megapascal stress is developed in the member, but it is compression, hence it is 100 megapascal, minus 100 megapascal. So after rotating the surface same scale through 180 degrees, same surface A become positive, top surface. The top surface of the A is subject to compression load. Earlier it was negative, positive, tensile, now it is compression. That means your loading shift from minus 100 Newton to plus 100 Newton, minus 100 Newton to plus 100 Newton. When surface A is in the top, it is subject to minus 100 Newton. When same surface A is in the bottom, it is subject to plus 100 Newton. Or we can say that in simple word, the loading pattern which changes with respect to time. The magnitude of the loading is changes, and pattern with which loading also changes with respect to time also changes. That means we have the fluctuating load of minus 100 to plus 100, plus 100 to minus 100. Such type of loadings are referred as a cyclic loading or stress reversal. The reversal in the sense, at one particular point, same portion is subject to tensile load. After sometimes same component is subject to, same surface is subject to compression load. Best example is same person. Imagine you are the student. So when when you are in the examination hall, let it be examination hall, you will have some little bit of tension. You have stressed. But once examination finish, imagine you are finished your engineering degree and last examination, you are totally relaxed. So you are tension free. Imagine you're going to movie, then you are enjoying. You are totally stress free. So that means your stress in our own body will be changes depending upon your time. When you write in the examination or before receiving the question paper, you are totally tension, or you are tensed or stressed. But imagine question paper was very easy, then you are so happy. So there is no tension. In the similar way, on the component, same portion of the component may be subject to tensile loading, or same component, because when surface is rotated, same portion of the component may be subject to compression loading or tensile. That means there is a change in magnitude of the loading with respect to time. If there is a uniform change in magnitude of the loading, it follows either sinusoidal curve or some cos curve or some other curve, then such type of loading is referred as fatigue loading. That means we require some arrangement. When you come to your practical aspect, we required some arrangement to hold the specimen. Already you have seen the bending specimen. You have seen the demonstration also, how the specimen breaks. In the similar way, we required, because you are rotating the specimen. In the bending test, it is supported and you are applying the load. But when you come to fatigue testing, this specimen is not just supported, it should be held tightly because it is rotating continuously. That means for that we require special arrangement. And most of the fatigue test specimens for metals, it will be circular cross section. You can see here. Now we'll come to our experiment part. So now we require some arrangement for holding the specimen. I think if we show some more diagram. So this is a fatigue test specimen. This is the specimen. In bending also there is a gauge length as well as length of the specimen. And before conducting the experiment, you have to measure the length of the specimen. You have to find out the gauge length. Gauge length is from this point to this point. That is the gauge length of the specimen. From this point to this point, total length of the specimen. The total length of the specimen is not so significant. Even in the bending test also, because this portion of the specimen, it is mainly used for holding purpose. This portion of the specimen is again used for holding purpose. It is not subject to any fatigue loading. Only the from this point to this point, the specimen is subject to the fatigue loading, either tensile, the compression, tensile loading. This is the specimen. So this portion is extra space is available here also, here also. It is mainly used for mounting the specimen into the collet. So now, after conducting the experiment, the specimen is broken. So this is the broken specimen. And if you consider the surface of this broken specimen, that surface having unique characteristics that we are going to study later. So now we can see here this shows very clear. So now one end of the specimen is mounted on the collet. This is the collet. In the bending, it is just supported, but it is mounted because specimen is rotating. This is one more end collet. To understand better, I have this complete box was open because you are not going to lab and seeing the machine. That's why it's the actual machine what we have in our lab. I'm not showing any photos from net. This is the actual photograph taken in our empty lab at the time of conduction of experiment or when you mounting the specimen. Now this is the specimen, and you have extra specimen. This is one more specimen, and one side of the specimen is already mounted, and another side of the specimen is to be mounted. This side of the specimen is to be mounted. Here you can mount. That's a mounting arrangement. For exclusively for the mounting, because for tightening the collet, we have the special spanners. These are the special spanners. It is designed exclusively for this machine, Ducom machine. It is make is Ducom. They have office in Bangalore only. They have manufacturing facility. Almost some sensor produced in some different some sensor they are importing, some sensor they are manufacturing in other state. But we have main assembly station and the major production is taking place in Bangalore only. Ducom, they are exporter of this fatigue testing machine to many countries. Their major businesses in the Indian service. At the same time, they are exporting the many machine, not only the fatigue. They are developing many machines. If you are really interested about machine testing machine, there is a Ducom. If you type Ducom Bangalore, you'll get website. You can get the different types of machines. Then, other than that, you see here. So if we see here, one is it required some arrangement for holding the specimen. For that, there is a collet. This collet can be tightened, or workpiece is tightened within the collet by using special hammer. Then internal arrangement is given for applying the load. We cannot see the loading because it is not a tensile load or it is just the compression load. You have to apply bending load. The top surface of the specimen should be subject to compression. Bottom is subject to tensile. It is nothing but a shaft. You are rotating the shaft at higher speed over a long period of time. Then to rotate the shaft or to drive the shaft, we require some motor. This is a motor. It is used for driving the shaft, rotating the shaft. So when this shaft is rotating, internal arrangement is given such a way that it is subject to some bending loading. So it is subject to some bending loading. The bending loading is not regular bending load. It is a fatigue loading. You can say it is a fatigue loading. Now, our aim of the experiment is to find out what is the fatigue strength of the material. Suppose if the compression strength of the material is around 70 megapascal, 100 megapascal, the fatigue strength may be around 3 to 4 times your ultimate tensile strength or yield strength. Normally you refer to the yield strength or ultimate tensile strength. Imagine the tensile strength of the material or strength of the material is around 100 megapascal. Then what is the fatigue strength? The fatigue strength may be only 30 megapascal or 40 megapascal. Because why I'm telling is, imagine you can carry around 100 kg of load, you can stand. So if it 50 kg, 50 kg. If someone told to carry take the carry around 100 kg of load and run for 1, 2 or 3 hours, you cannot run. You can just 50 kg of load you can keep and you can stand at one particular point. If someone is tend to run, then it may be very difficult, it may fail. Instead of 70, 100 kilonewton, 100 kg, you can keep only around 25 kg. 25 kg you can run for a 1 hour or 2 hours. But you have the capacity, regular capacity or static capacity of us is 50 kg. But when you're running, we cannot keep 50 kg. And only we can keep around 25 kg or 12.5 kg or 20 kg only. That is the fatigue strength. That means when you are running, we can carry the load without falling or without collapse. Maximum amount of load we can carry without collapse when while you are running is only 20, or you can say that your fatigue limit is only 20 megapascal. It is not 100 megapascal. So then that means you have to measure the load. How much amount of load is applied on the specimen, that you have to measure. There is a motor I've shown. Here there is a motor. You have to find out at what time, instead of saying time, after how many revolution or how many rotation the specimen fails here. You have the specimen here. After how many revolution the specimen fails, that also you have to specify. That means we require one more indicator, that is a counter. It does not show us any RPM, revolution per minute. The total number of cycles the specimen undergone cyclic loading is given by counter. I hope what is the purpose of counter? It does not show RPM or speed. For showing the RPM or speed, we have here digital indicator. It shows the RPM. When you conduct the test, most of the time RPM is fixed, and then you have to measure the loading. You have to note on the loading also. Initially it is fixed. It is not like a steady load. The loading changes continuously with respect to time. The initial loading is fixed. That is around 100 newtons you are applying, 100 newton. So loading is fixed for a given specimen, given experimentation. The speed is also fixed for a given one specimen, and corresponding that, imagine the loading is 100 kilonewton, 100 kilonewton. The speed is around 50 Newton. Actually, we find the speed is around 500 Newton. So you are running the shaft, or you are testing the specimen with this particular load and this particular speed. Then you have to test after how many revolutions specimen fails. Or the simple way is, imagine person A is running at 10 kilometer per hour. He is carrying 25 kg of load. He is capable of carrying 25 kg of load. He can run with 25 kg of load. How many hours he will run? Hardly 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. After 2 hours or 3 hours, with imagine water, no other thing, he will collapse. So in the similar way, the speed is fixed for the given experiment or given specimen. So when you conduct this fatigue test, the speed is fixed. Your motor is running with constant RPM. Here you can see this is a motor. The motor is running at constant RPM. Then loading is also fixed. We cannot see the loading. I can show some of the weight used in the loading. So there is a weight here, because finally it should subject to transfer loading. You cannot keep the load at the mid of the shaft, because you cannot. Once you keep the load at the midpoint of the shaft or beam, because it is rotating. If you consider building beam, you can keep the load at the midpoint. But it is again a comes under beam, but we cannot apply the load at midpoint, and some other point you are applying. So these small blocks, this is steel blocks. So that is indicates around 100 Newton of load. This is 100 Newton. There is a force multiplication. The internal arrangement is there. Even if you keep 100 kilonewton, so finally load applied on the specimen is around 500 Newton. That you have to remember. So if you apply 100 Newton of the load, that it will be magnified by 5 times. Then actual load acting on the specimen is 500 Newton. You have to understand, actual load you are keeping, let it be around 500 gram. But the actual load acting on the specimen because of keeping 500 gram on this pan is 500 into 5, that is 2.5 kg. That's the arrangement. Loading arrangement is given, but you can't see the loading arrangement. It is here inside the box. I not shown the inside the box. So loading arrangement is there now. So for that, you have to note down the load. The load is fixed now. For a given specimen, load is fixed, that will be 200 Newton. The speed is also fixed, that will be around 250 Newton. Corresponding to this load and this speed, so what will be the life of the component? Imagine two persons are running with same 25 kg of load, 25 kg of load for a few hours. At certain time, that will be after 1 hour, person A may fail with certain speed. He may not be able to achieve that target, but somewhere else at the midpoint he may fail or collapse. That is not that means after 1 hour he may collapse or running for around 3,000 or 4,000 meter, at almost equivalent to 4 kilometer. That is the failure point, because that each and every like a hip joint is subject to fatigue loading will be changes continuously. In the similar way, the here component also undergoes the fatigue loading. 1 minute, I am getting on. Wait for 1 minute. Just I am getting an important call from the office. So, okay, sorry, I had received a call from the office. So that means, so here no need to note down many values with respect to your. Can you see the PPT now? Can you see the PPT? Yes or no? Is it visible? Is it PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so these are the actual photograph I have taken, because when your machine is running, you cannot see, because in the bending at least we can see the how beam bends. So even compression also you can see how compression this specimen bends, because in the case of fatigue testing machine, it is not a 5 minutes specimen may not break. So it may take around 1 day or 2 days. That's why it is not included for examination. Examination duration is only 3 hours. Out of 3 hours and around 1.5 half an hour for following regular procedures for filling up the some form, etc. you may end with only 2.5 hours. Out of that, you have to conduct one more experiment around it. Again, it required around 1 hour. Then end with only 1 hour. So for that, if it is 1 hour, is specimen breaks after 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. So then where you note down the value, that's why it is not included for the examination, but it is available. It is required for your test also. It is required for your regular internal mark also. Even the examination also, they'll ask Viva. That's one part. Even for material science subject also, it is required. The fatigue concept of the fatigue. Then we have another design subject 2, design subject, design of machine element 1 and design of machine element 2. Again, those subject also, these concepts are required. Now, experiment is very simple. Imagine your load is fixed. The load is already fixed. The speed is also fixed. You have to run the specimen. Running the specimen, you have to switch on the motor. Once you switch on the motor, this rotation shows how many rotations the specimen undergone. The specimen undergone around 87,992 stress cycles or rotations. I am given the example of cyclic loading. I have given a scale. The scale is rotated around 10 times, rotated 10 times per minute. That means the scale is undergone tensile and compression load 10 times per minute. In the similar way, we have the specimen. The specimen is rotated at 500 RPM. It already crosses almost 87,000 cycles of rotation. I'm not talking about the RPM. The speed you can getting in terms of RPM. The speed you are getting in terms of RPM, but here is a total number of cycles it undergone. The counter gives total number of cycles it undergone. It undergone already 87,992 cycles, rotations, total rotation, 360 degree. So 360 degree, one rotation is equivalent to 360 degree. So it is undergone 360 into 87,992 rotations or degrees of rotation. Or simple way, in simple concept or simple procedure you have to follow in the fatigue testing machine is there is an arrangement for fixing the loading. You have to fix the load, fix the speed, run the machine. After how many cycles of rotation or after how many hours, if normally you don't express in terms of hours because speed also changes. After how many number of rotations the specimen breaks. In this case, the specimen breaks after 87,992 rotations. After completing this rotation, the specimen breaks. That means after, imagine you are running for imagine 10 people are running, let it be cross country running. So a few may collapse after 5 kilometer, then few may collapse after 8 kilometer, and at the end, only 1 or 2% may be there in the race because they are continuously running, and someone may collapse. But finally, we want how many number of cycles the specimen undergone. That is required for fatigue loading. But when you come to bending, if you just compare, because we have already finished bending and fatigue, bending, the loading is changes continuously. You are applying steady load. In the bending, you are applying steady load. But when you come to fatigue loading, it is not steady load. The loading remains same. The magnitude of loading remains same, but it's subject to alternate loading, either tensile, compression, compression, tensile. Best example I can give is, imagine now you have shaft, top surface of the shaft, one surface of the shaft, one line we can consider as surface A. If the RPM is for 1000 RPM, same shaft we can consider. So imagine I'm considering the top one surface here. This surface, I'll take a marker pen, I'll mark it here. If the RPM is 1000, this marked surface comes around 1000 times at the top. If the RPM of this rotation is 1000, imagine I put one line with using some marker pen. This line will comes around 1000 times to the top. So whenever this particular line comes to the top, that particular line is subject to compression loading. 1 minute rotation is 1000. Number of times it's subject to compression loading is 1000. When the same area or line, when it goes to the bottom, it is subject to tensile. That means we can say that if the RPM of the shaft is 1000 RPM, if you consider any fiber, if you use the correct technical term, instead of saying marked line, top fiber or any one of the fiber or any portion of the shaft is subject to tensile and compression around 1000 times. There is a change in stresses, positive, negative, or tensile and compression. It is like your AC current. It goes to a positive side, negative side, positive side, negative side. Here also shaft, if you consider one point of the shaft or one small area of the shaft, it is subject to tensile, compression, tensile, like that. It is 1000 times it will be changes. In the similar way, if it is like a high steam turbine engine or gas turbine engine shaft, so RPM is very high. It may be around 10,000 RPM. Then each portion of the shaft is subject to tensile and compression or stress reversal around 10,000 times. Imagine 1 minute on the same portion of the shaft is subject to tensile compression around 10,000 times. So that means those shafts should be able to withstand huge amount of loading or reversal loading. Then such type of loading is referred as the fatigue loading, and resistance offered by the shaft for fatigue loading is referred as fatigue strength. This is the fundamental concept. Once you understand the concept, experimentation take more amount of time, more time it may take, but experimental arrangement is simple. I'll start now. Fast, I'll explain how it is. This is a specimen used for fatigue loading, fatigue test. So this is referred as a rotating beam fatigue tester. Why you are saying it's a rotating beam is this specimen itself is referred as a beam because it is not subject to tensile loading, longitudinal loading, either compression or tensile. If you consider building columns, those building columns are subject to compression loading. If you consider fan rod is subject to tensile loading. Those are the longitudinal loading. But if you consider this particular specimen, it is subject to bending loading or transverse loading. So bending loading or transverse loading is, imagine you are holding the scale, you can pull the scale from the both hand. That is tensile loading. If you push the scale, it will be compression loading. If you are holding the scale, plastic scale by two hand, and someone push the scale at the midpoint, then it is after the transverse loading or bending loading. In the similar way, your tensile test specimen or bending test, this fatigue test specimen is almost looks like a same, shape is same, but this fatigue testing machine is specimen is subject to transverse loading or bending loading. So that's why it is referred as rotating. Your specimen or workpiece is rotating. In the bending test, workpiece is not rotating. It is stationary, it's fixed, or it is supported. Beam. Why you are using the term beam is it is subject to transverse loading. It is not subject to axial loading or longitudinal loading. Those are the fundamental concept. It is required from your third semester to final year. It's not only, don't think that these concepts are required only here, only for empty lab. It is required. So we have a beam related subject, around 3 or 4 subject you are going to study. Rotating, then there is a fatigue tester. Fatigue tester means already we define what is fatigue. So fatigue is the cyclic load or cyclic stresses. So when the components are able to resist cyclic stresses or fatigue stresses, that resistance is referred as a fatigue strength. Or you can say that our specimen is subject to fatigue loading or stress reversal or repeated stresses or cyclic stresses, then it is referred as fatigue tester. So you understood now, rotating, the specimen is rotating, beam, why you are saying the beam is, so it is, we have a specimen, it will act like a beam, it is subject to transfer loading, and type of loading is the fatigue loading. To find out what is the strength, fatigue strength of the specimen, For that, you are using a tester. The tester name is rotating beam fatigue tester. This is again actual machine only. I am taking the photo from the actual machine. I am not taking any this one. Now, when you come to your observation, you have to note, you have to fix the speed, let it be 500 RPM. You have to fix the load, let it be around 100 Newton, 100 Newton. Then you have to run the machine. After 87,000 RPM or 1 lakh RPM or 2 lakh RPM, the specimen break. Only that RPM you have to take down. No, only one readings you have to take here, not multiple reading. In the case of rebending, you have to do you have to take multiple reading. For 1 kg, what is the deformation? 2 kg, what is the deformation? 3 kg, what are the deformation? Those things you have to do. Now, we require it is a rotating beam fatigue tester. For rotating the specimen, we have the motor, and this is the specimen you can hear. Specimen is supported or clamped between between this support by collet check. Those are referred as a collet. It's a rotating beam tester, fatigue tester. So wait, there is small, it's not closing. Today you are doing 2 tests, but there are more concept when you come to your fatigue test. When you come to there is one more magnetic particle inspection. The concepts are very less. This is a specimen. The specimen is subject to transverse loading. We are not applying the loading directly on the specimen. Some other inside there is arrangement is provided to apply loading. So once after 87, the revolutions or cycle of rotation, specimen broken. Already you have conducted one test. This is broken specimen. So when machine is running, we cannot see any rotating part. That's why I'm not showing any videos here, because it's running at a higher speed. So you have to mount the specimen tightly. There is a mounting arrangement. Once you come to the lab, physically you can go and you can you yourself can mount. Will explain you. So here you can see here there is some pins to align the specimen correctly. This is the collet. This is one more specimen, extra specimen. What we have is hello. Okay, everything is fine now. Is it visible? If it is visible and audible, yes or no? You have to respond. Hello. Madhu?
Visible, sir.
Okay. Then I'll go a little bit fast. I hope you understand what is fatigue loading. There are 2 types of loading. One is static loading and one more is fatigue loading and the dynamic loading. The variation of the loading with respect to time, it follows certain pattern like sinusoidal curve, etc. Then it is referred as fatigue loading. If material is able to resist that particular fatigue loading for a given speed and given load, then that is referred as a fatigue strength. This is the arrangement for mounting the specimen. So when you come to lab, you can physically, you can anyhow definitely get chance to come. It's not like a previous semester. Even test also maybe regular test only, offline test. Even exam also, the exam is definitely offline examination, not online examination. What you have done in the previous semester. So these are the spanners specially designed for this particular machine. It is supplied from the company. So this is already one side of the specimen is mounted. Other there's a collet is open. Now you have to you have to bend the collet like this. There is a special arrangement. So don't think that this machine looks like very simple. That cost of the machine is around for 7 lakh rupees because they have used a special the motor, because motor you have to run continuously without any break for 5 days. Some specimen will not break even after 2 days or 3 days also. If the loading is minimum, the specimen may not break also. That's why motors are designed such a way that it should not overheat. Motor should not fail if the motor is run continuously for 3 to 4 days. That's why that machine cost is very high. There should not be any vibration. It's around 7 lakhs rupees machine. This is one more arrangement material. This is the weight. We can change the load by keeping different weights. So now already the specimen is mounted here. This is the specimen. It is mounted. This is the motor. This is the enclosure. This is a safety box. Safety box means when machine is running, this box can be closed so that suppose specimen breaks and hits someone else or some other machine or component. That's why there is a safety enclosure. This is how they are mounting the specimen here. So you can see there is a one. They are given 2 pair of spanner. By using those pair of spanner, he's mounting this. His name is Venkatesh. He is the instructor. So now when you come to this, object of the experiment is to study the effect of fluctuating stresses. The fluctuating stresses is nothing but the cyclic stresses. Already we studied about it, because you should be familiar with the wordings. That's why I given so many examples. The loading is changes with respect to time. The stress also changes from positive to negative, negative to positive. That's why it is after fluctuating. Your stress is fluctuating between minus 100 megapascal to plus 100 megapascal, or minus 100 Newton per mm square to plus Newton mm square. Then we can use the term the fluctuating stresses. Normally encountered in the fluctuating loads, like internal combustion engine connecting rods are the example for fluctuating load. So you have to use what are the things are required. Vernier caliper to measure the diameter. Specimen, there is some separate ASTM standard. According to the standard, you have to prepare the specimen. Then dead weight. I already have seen the dead weight. The wrench for tightening the bolt of the specimen holder. We have collet. It's old part. So we have collet special hammer, not hammer, the spanner for mounting the specimen. Theory of the fatigue already I explained. What is fatigue? Experimental procedure already. First, you have to prepare the specimen. There is a separate standard for the preparation of the specimen. Don't worry about that part. Then you have to mount the specimen. You have to fix the load like 100 Newton, and you have to fix the speed like 500 RPM or 1000 RPM. Then you have to run the machine till the specimen fails. That is the procedure. I will not read those statements. Now there are some discussion or Viva questions, but at present you may not be able to answer these Viva questions. Still, a lot of fundamentals you have to study about fatigue fracture. That some fundamental you are studying in material science. Some fundamental explain some theoretical aspect of fatigue. I'll explain in the next class also. Even though today I'm starting the experimental part. So what is the stages in the fatigue fracture? Then you not understand those. Still some portion of the MS I have to cover. And so most fatigue crack starts and why? What is mean stress and R ratio? Some amount of thing is required. Then correction data analysis, nothing to worry. Fundamental of fatigue testing machine I'll not go through now, because next class I'll go what are the fundamentals of fatigue test, fatigue theory. So this is the end of your fatigue test. There is no video, because even I plan to put the video also. It is a video you cannot see anything. It's like a stationary, because the specimen is running at such a speed that you cannot see the specimen. Still, if you want, I'll put it in the next class. Already you've seen how specimen is mounted. Now that is the end of fatigue test. But as per fatigue test is considered, it will be there for your regular classwork. You have to write the details in your manual as well as in the observation book. Only one reading you have to note down. That is how many number of cycles the specimen fails or break. That particular cycle you have to note down. Nothing, no need to calculate any stresses, etc. Only one observation you have to make. One specimen fails, but other than that, you have to note down speed, etc. I will not explain this concept, because already you have sat for 4 hours in the morning session. Already I took around 1 hour. That's the most of theory concept I explained. If you explain the fatigue fundamental now, you may get bored. That's why I skip. I go for magnetic particle testing. First, when you come to magnetic particle testing, first I will show the video of how the experiment is conducted. So you may not understand, but when you are explaining, hardly it is around 30 minutes is required to explain the magnetic particle testing. The testing is also simple, and concepts are also very simple. First, I will show the video. After seeing the video, I'll explain the concept. Then at the end, once again, I'll show the video. So that video is around 3 to 4 minutes, so that we can see the minute details of the test when it is seeing the video at the end. That's why I'll try to put the video at the beginning of the explanation, at the end of the experiment. So it will not take much time, hardly 15 to 20 minutes to take. During shift or time, I have to open new PPT. Those who are not entered your US number, enter your US number as well as name in the chat box. I don't think that after entering the name and the US number you can view. The first I will show the video. It is around 2 to 3 minutes. Then just see the video. Then I'll explain the concept. Is it video is visible?
Yes.
Okay.
The reddish color is the magnetic particle powder. Say observe fix it. Again, so material, fixed material, and yoke is there, one switch is there, and AC DC current is there. AC water wave. Next, the yoke is there. See, you fix it. What is the node? You slant it, you press it, powder. So after say yoke is there now, put it, that is his mind stream. So yoke, so 1, 2, 3 times you press it. 3 times you fix it. After slowly yoke you remove. After say this magnet, say crack is there now, you observe it, crack is there. Crack. Sometimes 2 or 3 holes is there, sometimes 2, 3 holes will come, sometimes 1 hole will come. See, cracks is there, this position is there, up is there. This is magnetic particle test.
Okay, I think so. Here, I think visible video is visible now. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So now there are 2 types of testing. One is destructive testing and one more is non-destructive testing. Even you have finished bending test, that is comes under destructive testing. There is one more type of test. It is non-destructive testing. Even fatigue testing is also non-destructive testing, because already you have destructed the specimen. The specimen is destroyed. It's broken into 2 pieces. So hence it is after the destructive testing. Even bending also, it is a destructive testing, because specimen is broken into 2 pieces, or it is totally bent. It cannot be used. for any other component. Only it can send it to Gujri. Recent. Now that is one part. There is a non-destructive testing. The magnetic particle testing comes under non-destructive testing. So bending test, you are finding out the strength of the material. Even in fatigue test also, you are finding out the strength of the material when it is subject to cyclic loading or fluctuating stresses or cyclic stresses. So what is the strength? You can keep around 10 kg of load in your head, or 10 kg of load in your head. Imagine a small stick. If you take the stick of 100 mm, if you hit repeatedly, your pain will be more. Even you can carry 10 kg of load, it is a static load without any difficulties, without any pain. We can keep 10 kg of load in our head. Take on 100 gram of stick. If someone hits repeatedly, they cannot tolerate. You don't have strength to bear that pain. So that is nothing but your repeated loading. Repeated loading or cyclic loading. At one point with a maximum load, in other point no load. In the similar way, dynamic loading also, loading will be changes with respect to time. Fatigue also, loading is changes with respect to time. It is acting over a period of time, not in a one time. Then there you get the fatigue strength. Those two experiments are related to strength of the material. Now there may be some defect in the material itself. If there is any defect in the material, it may be, so defect may be external defect or internal defect. During casting, etc. During casting, there may be some defect. There may be surface defect also. Some crack may be formed. During turning operation, machining operation, or lathe machine operation, or planing operation, etc., there may be defect formed on the specimen. If the defect is bigger size, then we can identify. If the defect is very, very small, then we cannot identify. In such cases, you have to go for non-destructive testing. Especially we have magnetic particle testing. Magnetic particle testing. Magnetic particle testing. In the magnetic particle testing, it is used only for the ferromagnetic material, not non-magnetic material. That's one. That's why you are using a specimen here. 1 minute, just. So okay, I think today HOD is not there. I'm getting many calls from the office. Okay. Is it so PPT is visible now? This video is visible? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now in the magnetic particle in physics you studied. So whenever the metal, I'm talking about the ferromagnetic materials, are magnetized, there is a magnetic fluxes of lines of flows through the material, solid material. I'm talking about the magnetic flux. Magnetic flux, the magnetic forces or magnetic fluxes of the lines are in the material. It flows from north to south or south to north. So that is the important concept you have to remember. That's why we have some arrangement to magnetize the specimen. This is the specimen. This specimen is to be magnetized. That's the one part. Then once it is magnetized, before magnetization, you have to put some magnetic the particles, powders. That is after the magnaflux powder. Once you put the powder on this specimen, if you have to distribute the powder uniformly, that already is seen the video. I think somewhere here, he's putting the powder on the specimen uniformly. Here you can see here this powder. He's putting the powder uniformly. Once powder is distributed uniformly, then so this specimen is to be magnetized. This is the arrangement. It is connected to the main electrical line. So there is a specimen is magnetized using this magnetic particle tester. This is a magnetic particle tester. It is referred as a yoke tester. So now the specimen is magnetized. Once specimen is magnetized, we can imagine the magnetic lines of fluxes of the lines. So it moves from one end to the other end. If there is no defect in the material, it will not disturb the uniform distribution of the powder on the top surface. There are some schematic diagram in the theory part. I'll explain you after this part. So this is powders are there. It is uniformly distributed throughout the material. If there is no defect, I'm talking about the crack. It may be surface crack or subsurface crack. If there is no defect or cracks in the material, it will not alter the powder uniformity of the powder. So if there is a defect in the material, then what will happen is, so magnetic lines the flux lines will change the direction. So whenever it will change the direction on those parts, so there is a non-uniform distribution of the powder. That somewhere here you can see. So now it is almost, there is no change in the pattern of the powder. See here, this is after magnetized. Somewhere here there is a crack is there. So because of the crack, magnetic lines will not flow in the air medium. Whether it is a water, it will take the easiest path. Even if the magnetic lines of force also, if there is a crack here, there is a air. Crack is nothing but a air. It not moves through the crack. It is take the different direction. Magnetic flow line is almost like a parallel lines. Whenever it comes very close to the crack, it will changes its direction. Here also it will changes its direction. So whenever there is a change in the direction, this it will disturb the powder already is sprinkled on the surface. Already your powder is put on the material. Once powder is put, the specimen is magnetized. When specimen is magnetized, you studied in physics or electrical first year electrical science. There is a magnetic flux lines. The flux lines will move from one end of the line to one end of the specimen to the other end of the specimen. So wherever there is a air crack, there is a air gap. It will change the direction of the flux lines. So whenever there is a change in flux lines on those spots, it will disturb the uniformity of this sprinkled powder. Whenever there is a disturbance for the sprinkled powder, then here distribution is different. You can identify that in this space there is a crack. It may be small crack. It cannot be visible from our naked eye. Still, we can identify by using magnetic crack detection method. So now he is sprinkling the powder. So first step is you have to put the magnaflux powder on the surface of the specimen. Then you have to magnetize the specimen. So once it is magnetized, there is electromagnetic forces flowing through the specimen, or flux lines are moving in the specimen. Those the concept. So wherever there is a crack, so there is a disturbance for electromagnetic fluxes of lines to flow. it will take the different path. Whenever it takes the different path, it will changes the uniformity of the distribution of the powder on the surface. Then we can say some small line or patches that indicate that there is some crack in the specimen. That is the overall video. That's the one part. I have to come out from the. Then I'll tell you on the video. I take another 5 minutes, and I'll show some concept used in magnetic particle testing. Again, it will take only 5 minutes for you, and for the exam conductional test, it will take only 5 minutes. But you may have to expect some questions on electromagnetic theory, how magnetic fluxes of the lines are flows like this. So it is a magnetic particle testing. It comes as non-destructive testing. So again, it is referred as a testing machine is referred as a magnetic crack detector. Magnetic crack detector. It is used for detecting the crack by using the concept of electromagnetic forces. Hence, it is referred as a magnetic crack detector. So this is the yoke type magnetic crack detector. This is the actual machine what we have. Magnetic particle testing equipment. This specimen already you have seen. This is a specimen. You have to magnetize the specimen. Before magnetization, you have to put the powder on the specimen. So this is only the yoke type magnetic tester, magnetic particle tester machine. It is used for magnetizing the specimen. So this is again, the specimen is magnetized now. The powder is sprinkled over the surface. This is the magnaflux powder. It is a magnetic ferromagnetic powder only. I'm not going for the introduction. So now imagine there is now this is the concept here. I think you see is it PPT is visible? Yes or no? I don't think.
No, sir, it's not.
That's why I had the doubt. That's why I asked. I'll fastly run through the PPT. So it is, I think, can you see the PPT now? Yes, or no?
Sir.
Now this is the machine. This machine is used for magnetizing the specimen in simple way. This is a magnetic particle testing equipment. It will not test. It is used for magnetizing the magnetic material like ferrous material. Ferrous and its alloys, not the non-magnetic material. This test cannot be used for non-magnetic testing. This is the specimen already you have seen. This is the machine. It is used for magnetizing the specimen. So now already the specimen is magnetized by magnetized and already powders are sprayed. This is the magnaflux powder, magnetic particle. It is red powder. It is a magnaflux powder. It is a magnetic particle only. It is like a ferromagnetic powder only. Some will be having some particular composition, but it's red in color. So imagine there is no. Imagine this is North Pole and this is South Pole. One specimen is magnetized. One specimen is magnetized. So now specimen is magnetized, and the magnetic field lines moves from South Pole to North Pole. These are the imaginary or schematic sketch. Imagine there is no defect in the specimen. Already on the over the specimen, you have put some sprinkled some powder, magnetic powder. If there is no crack, this magnetic flow of magnetic field lines will move parallel to each other in a straight line. But it will not disturb the powder, the pattern of the powder. Suppose there is a crack here. You can see here. There is a crack here. This is a vertical. You kept vertical position. So whenever there is a crack, so this magnetic field lines will change the direction of the direction. Instead of moving straight, it will take different path. It is like a curved area or it is a signal area. Instead of moving straight, it will take the different path. Now here there is a magnetic particles. This is magnetic material. This is a magnetic material. Instead of moving here, because here is a magnetic path, magnetic powder, it moves over like this. It will take the different path. When you're taking the different path, curved path, it will disturb the magnetic powders. It will disturb the magnetic powder. When it is disturbed, already it is uniformly distributed. Once it is disturbed, the uniformity is lost. Wherever there is a maximum amount of disturbance in the magnetic particle powder that is already spread on the specimen, that indicates that on that particular spot there may be defect or crack. So that is the conclusion. You are not taking any readings. You are just identifying where, at what location, at what location there is a crack is there. Whether specimen is saying crack or not, that's all it will shows. It will not give what is the depth of the crack, what is the width of the crack. Those information will not be given from this particular test. I think you understood. So when there is a specimen is, if there is no crack in the specimen, your magnetic field lines will move parallel to each other in straight line. If there is a crack in the specimen, instead of taking the straight path, wherever there is a defect, so instead of moving through the air, it will not move through because there is air resistance more. So it will take different path. So one of the path may be through this powder. Whenever it takes this curved path, it will disturb the uniformity of the powder on that particular spot. So wherever there is a disturbance in the uniformity of the powder on the surface, that we can see it from the naked eye, that indicates that on that particular spot there is a defect. So if there is a defect, your component is rejected. If there is no defect, it will be accepted. If there is a defective component, it goes to some other repair or further any other process. So this is the yoke type MPT. It is referred to magnetic yoke type magnetic particle tester. Also, it is referred to MPI. Short form is MPI, magnetic particle inspection. So now procedure is simple. Already you have discussed. Magnetizing the component, applying the magnetic powder, and locating the defect. It hardly takes around 3 to 4 minutes. But a lot of fundamentals are given in the fundamental concept behind MPI or magnetic particle inspection in your manual. So that you can read the manual. That is a separate subject itself. It is after non-destructive testing. You may have in 7th semester or 8th semester. If you go to NAL, National Aerospace Laboratories, or ISRO, ISRO, there is a separate division. They'll do all non-destructive testing. Most of the satellite component, critical component of aircraft will subject to non-destructive testing. Once specimen is prepared or components are prepared, it cannot be destroyed. Before assembly, they'll go for non-destructive testing. Even after assembly also, they'll go for non-destructive testing. Advantages. So it is time required is very, very less. Inspect part with irregular, any shape also we can irregular. These are some of the advantages of the magnetic part testing. It is one of the NDT test. The limitation is it can be used only for the ferromagnetic materials. It cannot be used for the non-ferrous material because non-ferrous material like aluminum, copper, etc. It is not magnetized. Only it is magnetized, then there is a disturbance of the powder spread over the specimen. So even the inspection of the large part may require use of equipment with special power requirement. All those are the disadvantages. If cleaning is required before testing. Also cleaning, you have to clean the specimen. After testing also you have to clean the specimen, and it will identify the crack of maximum around 6.6 in this diameters. Bio questions normally the fundamental question: what is the magnetic flaw detection? What is the principle? Again, you have to explain that principle. Then, how method of magnetizing by using yoke type MPI. What is dry and wet method of magnetic particle testing? What you see is a dry powder you are used. Similarly, we can use wet powder. That is about the wet magnetic particle testing. In what you test your conductivity is only dry. It's a question and answer session for you. And myself, I'm giving the answer. Few industrial application of magnetic particle testing. It's mainly used for detecting the cracks in the welding, detecting the cracks in cast component. How yoke type magnetic crack detector works? It is based on your electromagnetic principle. Precaution to be taken. There is a high voltage. You should be very careful. Is it related to? What are the limitations of magnetic particle flaw detection? What is the limitation? It cannot be used for non-ferrous material. That is the major limitation. What are the advantages? The procedure is simple. It will not take much time. Even huge specimen also you can be tested. Irregular shaped specimen also you can be tested. Only if you have a flat surface, there is one of the advantages. If it is a curved surface, it is very difficult to put the powder or magnoflux powder or magnetic particle powder. Can you use the magnetic detector for non-ferrous material? Yes or no? We cannot use the magnetic particle inspection for non-ferrous material like aluminum, copper, etc. Can we use the magnetic particle detection for subsurface and internal flaw detection? No, only it is used for mainly surface flaw of depth up to 0.1 mm or 2 mm. If there is a flaw at the depth of 2 centimeter or 3 centimeter, then it cannot be used. In such cases, there is a one more testing that is referred as ultrasonic testing machine. So that is the end of magnetic particle testing. As per your examination pattern is considered, in the examination they may ask magnetic particle testing, but fatigue testing machine, it will be there for your regular class test as well as regular class experiment, not for the final examination. But in the final examination in the Viva, they may ask many questions because you're not conducting any test. They may ask many number of questions on fatigue testing. The fundamental of fatigue is required for your material science, and many subjects it is required. Even for master degree subject, there is a one subject completely on fatigue principle only. That is up to advanced machine design. There are books are there only on fatigue. There is a special fatigue testing laboratory is there, especially under DRDO. Hyderabad, there is a fatigue testing laboratory, DRDO branch. There may be around more than 500 engineers or works, engineers, master degree holders, doctorate holders or works only on fatigue resisting materials, how to develop, how to test, all those things. There is a separate division in DRDO, Defense Research and Development, DRDO organization, defense organization. Most of aircraft industry, automotive industry, also there is a separate division. They will take care of fatigue component, fatigue property of the material, fatigue testing, fatigue development of fatigue resisting material, all those things. Those are the important of the fatigue testing machine. That is the end of today's class. So don't think that class is finished at 3:30. Another half an hour. Anyhow, your manual is already uploaded into the Google Classroom. Just go for some self-study. If you have any doubt, you can clarify.